Hi, okay, in front of me I've got an Arrain exhaust system. So it seems to be a bit of a minefield for some folks. I thought we'd go through the types of exhausts that are available, not necessarily any particular brands, but to show you what options are available. Now generally when you buy your engine, it doesn't come with a muffler. Some do, some don't, but generally if it does come with a muffler, it's a basic style one, kind of similar to these little drop down stacks. Essentially these items are basically a noise deflector. It takes the noise from inside the cylinder and throws it at the ground. So as far as muffling the engine, it doesn't do very little. It also just does the job to get the noise outside the cowl and the exhaust outside the cowl basically. This sets off a DA150. It's not anything we kind of recommend nowadays. Most places now are a little noise sensitive, and probably the tip is if you're not noise sensitive now, you will be in the future, and it's something you should look at. In certain cases, guys are happy to run these. Personal preference, I don't particularly like them that much. Particularly when I want to go to a field, I like to be quiet, so I'm not going to tap on the shoulder and ask to move along because you're creating too much noise and making it difficult for the club. With a 50cc style engine, this noise isn't so bad. It's okay, it's controllable with a little bit of throttle management, but once you get over that 85 singles and so forth, the noise is quite horrendous, and it gets difficult to manage and you can't fly on quietly. So if you're looking at doing the system, these are okay, but barely do the job. Some of the 50s and 55s and 60s that are out there will use a pit style muffler. This works on an inverted mount when the engine's inverted. This will deflect the noise from basically inside back to the bottom of the cowl and out of the way. It'll probably fractionally quieter than a standard style muffler like this one, but essentially, on a 50, not too bad. Get to an 85, it's quite loud. And I think anywhere with noise sensitive neighbours will be asking you to make it a little quieter. So where do you go from there? The next step on is either a canister like this or a tuned pipe. Now we get a lot of calls asking about, well, what's the difference and will a tuned pipe be louder? Essentially not. A tuned pipe, as you can see, is much, much bigger. The noise from these is very, very similar. The tuned pipe will give you a small advantage in a power increase, but that's generally at the expense of a little bit more RPM. Now, a little bit more RPM, while it sounds quite good, can also create another noise problem from prop rip. So you have to consider that. So if you're going to pick up 400 or 500 RPM in the air, you might get up to 800 RPM. You'll notice that the prop will rip a lot harder. And the other issue with pipes, so to speak, you have to keep in mind is the CG problem. The fair majority of this pipe, once it's on the header, for instance, that's a header off a DA50 coming off the engine, the majority of the pipe is behind the centre of gravity. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about going for a pipe or a canister. A canister, for instance, here we have a couple of types. This is the front exit canister. This is a rear exit canister. The power delivery from both of these is similar. No difference at all. In some cases it's far more advantageous to have the exhaust exiting the front from the cowl. It's easier to work on, easier to put in. The rear exit one on some of the other models is easier, depending on how you've got your system. If you've got a can tunnel and you can get the exit to come out at the back, great. So pick your poison whatever way you go. Now you'll see with some of these, this is a German built canister, it's built by K&S. It's not just a hollow tube, it has in here a reflector plate and various chambers. As you can see, that's how far back the reflector plate is. What it does is reflect forward, changes the pulses, but it'll also direct all the exhaust further up through a couple of separate chambers and back out through the front. This actually baffles the noise quite a bit. It's an excellent system, made in Germany. This one here is a cheap and cheerful copy, so to speak. As you can hear, when you hear it, it's quite tinny. In comparison to the others, they're not. Now, essentially, that's just a hollow tube. There's no reflector plate in it. There's no other chambers to keep. So it's a little ringy, a little dingy. It makes quite a bit of noise. It's cheap and cheerful. Does it do the job? In my opinion, no. It will keep the noise down a little, but it won't give you performance. The better built cans will give you no performance loss, and in some cases a bit of a gain. These don't, but they'll keep the noise down, and they are a little bit more affordable. Whether they're better or not, well, you determine that. Now, how do you hold this? Mounting a canister. There's various ways of doing it. And a lot of kits that come in nowadays already have canister mounts, and in general it's your traditional plywood one. You can get this style, which is aluminium, which comes from Seacraft. The idea of this is the can goes through the middle. You can see that the silicon tube holds it here, and the can can oscillate and do all of this. One of the things about when you're mounting a can or a pipe is you don't want to rigid mount it. I know it seems a little adverse, but mufflers usually have a little bit of rubber mounting, but you want this to be able to circulate like this, not bang up and down, but generally just move around without knocking itself to death. And it takes all the stress off your header, because your engine's going to be hard mounted to the frame, and you want this to be able to move, otherwise things start cracking. So consider that. Now in some cases with aluminium ones, like with this chap here, you have to bolt that in somehow. Now getting into a pipe tunnel and bolting that in can be a little bit inconvenient. A lot of times the ply one's just far easier to glue in. Glue it in place, slip the can in, and that's it, done. Another option which KS do is a comfort mount. I really like this kind of style of mount. This one here, the comfort mount sits on this band here, bolted up, it's rubber isolated, and this works extremely well. Now they only make them in various sizes to suit their cans, but in some cases they do fit other brands. The other issue with this one, as adverse to the aluminium one and the wooden chap, is getting it in place. In some models it's difficult to get in place because you can't screw the item down. Whether it's mounted up that way or that way is irrelevant, but getting in to bolt it in can make it slightly difficult. So have a think about which way you want to go. All of these are readily available, again in various sizes. That's an MTW one, Seacraft, KS, take your pick. As I said, I've mounted them all either way, but a lot's really dependent on how they actually go into the airframe. Now when it comes to headers, there's a wide variety. Now all the ones that we keep, this is a MTW one, it's stainless steel and it's silver soldered on its joints. This is what they call a knuckle header. Now stainless steel to me is better than the alloy ones. The alloy versions that have been around for a little while tend to break. They're very heavy. It's made of very thick material. Now these are quite light, and the idea between a knuckle header that you'll find for on a twin is these ones, you can move these little knuckle joints here, and there we just turned it into about 100 to 100 mil drop, or you can change it the other way. You change it into almost a zero drop. Now also you can move the items in, move them wherever you like. Now going onto a twin or a single that's side mounted is perfect. You can move it around wherever you like. Then all you need to do is silver solder these little joints here. Now the silver solder, it comes from Germany, it's got a high silver content, and telling you now, it's worth it. Just buy the stick of silver solder. You can do it with a matte gas or LPG, and it's really simple to use. It doesn't need a lot of heat, and it flows beautifully in comparison to say what plumbers use. To be honest, it's rubbish. It probably works well on copper. It ain't real good on stainless steel. Now another style is from KS. This is what they call a comfort header. Now essentially this is a single piece of material. It comes to you like this, and you hand bend this chap. Now this is all one piece of material. You put it in a vise and bend it to where you like. Now you'll see this one's already pre-bent. This is one off our test stand. These little O-rings here stop the metal from touching each other, and essentially after that their job's done. They'll probably either fall off over time or deteriorate and just not be there. But this one was bent in a vise. You hold it by 2 bolts, bend it by hand to the shape that you want, and again you can get it in your airframe exactly where you want it, as you want it, depending on your right thrust and up thrust. So ideally the knuckle header in these are far better than already pre-made ones. Pre-made ones give you no option as far as how much right thrust you're going to get and how much up and down. These you can make some slight adjustments, make them fit in your airframe, and Bob's your uncle. As you can see, this is, once it's bent, it's not a floppy piece of material. It's very sturdy, it's very tight. Now after that you've got for singles and DA50s, etc. This is what they call a double bend header. This goes on inverted and exits behind the engine. As you'll see on one of our 60s that we got one here, we have one already pre-set up. This is a 2-inch drop header, and when we say a 2-inch drop double bend, is dropped 2 inches below the exhaust port. 1 inch would be 1 inch, and 0 would be absolutely in line with the bolts. So there's lots of things for exhaust systems, lots of choices that you have to make. Sit and have a think about it, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too is when you're using a coupler, these are made of Teflon. These Teflon couplers get soft with heat. So essentially when you're putting this on the end of your header, you'll slip that all on. You'll use a spring clamp, and you'll notice this is a spring clamp, not a worm drive clamp. The reason you don't use a worm drive clamp is a worm drive clamp will put pressure on that, but as this gets hot and a little bit soft, it'll be pliable and it'll move out of the way, and the worm drive will actually loosen off. Well, it doesn't loosen off, it gets loose on the material. A spring clamp will always leave constant pressure on there. So when you're getting your Teflon coupler on there, just make sure you leave a little bit of gap between the header and the canister itself. Leave about 5 or 6 mil. You don't want them touching together. It creates RF noise, and these will grow a little bit as they get warmer. And don't forget, don't use worm drive clamps, use the spring drive clamps. If you need any more information, give us a call here at DA and we'll give you a hand, and hopefully we can get a solution for you. Thank you.